Hey folks, welcome to the channel, and in this case I want to talk about 22 long rifle ammunition, especially for self-defense. If you have a little carbine, if you have a gun in your house that was from some family member, grandpa, whoever that was, you have 22, and this is a fairly common question of, okay, I'm not going to buy anything else, I don't have the money, I don't have the interest, this is what I got from my grandpa, from my dad when I was a kid. Whatever the reason is, you have a 22 and that's what you're counting on for defense. And you're probably not feeling super happy about it because 22 sucks for self-defense. Or does it? Well, as we saw in one of the previous videos analyzing what turns out to be more effective or not after analyzing over 1,800 incidents over 20 years. And I suggest you go watch that video. Long story short is that it really does not matter much at all. In fact, talking about statistics, 22 long rifle has better one-shot stops than 9mm. Oh, but you blasphemy, that's impossible. It has so much more energy and this and that. Well, no, because when you look at the numbers, that's what the numbers tell you. You may like it or not, but you cannot argue with that, right? It's not about one guy or one incident. It's about almost 2,000 cases studied, and that's what the numbers show. Why is that? Because of the kind of situations in which 9mm is used, the kind of situation in which 22 is used, the kind of people that get shot with one or the other, maybe someone breaking into a house and they're not really up for much of a fight, and the guy that's going nuts against the police is. So you can analyze this all day long. The numbers are what they are. Now, the only useful conclusion we can reach here is that it pretty much does not matter much at all. What matters is where you hit. And if you hit where it matters, any of these things will do just fine, right? If you put that round in the center of mass with enough accuracy, and if it's not one, it's going to be two, but believe me, if you get that shot where it counts, it will do what it's supposed to do. That's the only thing that should keep you up at night, is be accurate with whatever you're shooting. Because if you shoot with 22, statistics say that, yeah, it will work. Don't worry about that. Now, I'm not saying get rid of your 9mm. This is what I want to have. Well, not this 9mm in proper ammunition for that intended use, as you would correctly assume. But yeah, I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm just saying that this is a lot more effective than people give it credit for. A lot more. People have no idea how effective this can be when used in the right way. All right, so having said that, all right, you convinced me. I have a 20, or maybe it's recoil. I'm just too sensitive to recoil. I can only go with a 22. All right, whatever the case is, right, what is it that I actually buy? I have the gun. It's going to be a 22. What ammo do I get? Because, I mean, since I'm not exactly going crazy here with energy, and keep in mind, what I'm saying here in terms of statistics, how pretty much it's all that's not including these guys. These 308s, that is going to be another story. You get hit in the shoulder with this thing, it's going to rip something out of your body. This, maybe not so much, all right? But what is it that you buy then? If I'm going with a 22, do I buy some fancy ass ammo that splits into 1,000 pieces? Well, no. I did a video recently about the video game Red Dead Redemption, where the character just cuts a cartridge like a cross because, yeah, that makes it work like a hollow. No, it does not. It does not work like, oh, but in the olden days when lead was softer. I don't know, man, about the olden days. I'm telling you that now with lead ammo, if it's not designed to expand, it's going to be hard lead and it's not going to be doing a damn thing. Now, someone mentioned, I think it was in the Spanish channel, that, well, you know what? If I cut my 22s, they actually do split apart. And that's probably the case, you know, especially when you have so much of the projectile exposed. If you go very deep and you cut it like in 4 prongs like that, you know, with very deep cuts, 2 of them at a 90-degree angle, sure, I can see how it will probably split, because it is quite a bit of it that is out there. And if you go deep enough, yeah, it may split in 3 or 4 pieces, right? Or maybe one of those. Now, on the other hand, you're looking at a cartridge that was not designed to do that. You're modifying it, never a good idea. You're going to be losing accuracy because it's not going to have the same accuracy as before you modified it. You end up with a chance of even jamming the gun if you do this on anything semi-automatic. I would never do anything like that in a semi-automatic, in no way. especially not for defense, but let's say it does, right? And I remember there was some ammunition specifically designed like that. I don't know if it was in 22 or 9mm or whatnot, but it was like pieces of lead held together by a copper jacket, but it was separate. So when it hit, it just flew in a few different places. So right as soon as it hit, and I think they had like this pre-fragmented 22 as well. So what happens there is that when it hits, it fragments like such, right? So, and instead of going like in a full metal jacket or lead round nose, just going straight in there, no expansion and no deformation whatsoever. Well, not whatsoever. It's just keeping very, very much the integrity of that projectile. If it's pre-fragmented or whatnot, yes, gonna do like this, but it's not gonna have nearly as much penetration. And if there's one thing you don't want to compromise when you have a round that is not exactly full with a choke ton of power, is lose penetration. You don't want to sacrifice penetration. Penetration is the only thing 22 has going for it. It's not overwhelming power. You're not shooting a damn thing like this in your 22. There's gonna be quite a bit bigger, So no, it's not this thing. It's not this. It is tiny, and it's just about putting a hole where there was no hole before. If you do it in the right place, effective. If not, not so much. And here is where you start looking, okay, so I'm not going to go with any exotic crap, but I go with hollow points, right? Because hollow points is the way to go. My advice right now is the following. If you only have a 22, buy quality 22, not this one, not Remington Thunderbolts that are known to be quite crappy. It can work, but I wouldn't go with that. I would go with CCI or some good quality ammunition, some reliable, and maybe go for their higher end ammo, right? Something that is a nickel plated case. That's usually going to be a little bit more expensive, but it's not going to be tarnishing. It's going to be more reliable, especially as years go by and whatnot. And usually they will have, the uppercut, the stingers, Federal Punch. I think there was the Velociraptors at some point. So you have some of these marketing gimmicky names, but they have ammunition intended for self-defense. Usually it's going to be on the hollow points, right? And if you go with a stinger, I don't have a problem. I think it's a great way to go. Going with stingers, it will expand a little bit, and it's likely to still have 10, 12 inches of penetration, which is the minimum I would want to have. Anything that's penetrating less than 10 inches, I don't feel comfortable with. FBI says 12 inches. Okay, let's go with 12 inches. I'm not going to go nuts over 2 inches of less penetration in this thing, especially if it's ammunition designed for that. But I'm not going to go nuts over, but it has to be hollow points. If it's hollow point and it still penetrates, but keep in mind, when we're looking at hollow points, right, let's say it's like a 9mm, something like this, right, where you have the temporary cavity and the permanent cavity and tissue that is ripped and it's, but look at that nice bleed and whatnot. All of these things that, as we were assessing before, it's cool if you have it. Again, I'm not going to drop my Glock 9mm for a 22. I'm not stupid. But I'm not going to obsess over, but I want... When you look at it in a 9mm, a 357 Magnum, 44, or let alone in something bigger, but yeah, there is something about that to be said. Still, penetration, shot placement is king. But when you look at it from a 22... right, long rifle, it's going to be penetrating, it's going to be expanding in the hollow point. Well, it is small. It's not going to be a massive temporary cavity. It simply doesn't have the energy for that nonsense. So in the video, it looks good when you look at it in YouTube, but when you put it side by side against something that is quite a bit more powerful, it is quite anemic. It's just, if you want to blow up a little squirrel or a bird, sure, but for self-defense, it is going to be always about this thing. It's always going to be about how much penetration I get. And maybe not as obvious as some people assume, if you're shooting with more velocity, it could well be the case that it penetrates even less, especially with hollow points in 22. Why is that? Well, because the hollow point needs a certain velocity to expand. It happens with other rounds as well. Let's say you have 9mm, right? Maybe a little bit cheaper 9mm hollow point ammunition. You shoot it with a rifle and it expands. You shoot it with a pistol and it does not expand. Guess which one penetrates more? Yes, the one that did not expand will probably penetrate quite a bit more, maybe even over penetrate, which is something you try to avoid. One of the reasons why you use hollow points, right? And that's because in spite of having less velocity and having less energy, that energy was not enough to expand it. And since it did not expand, it was not dumping that energy there, and it was not slowing down as fast in that hydraulic shock that it created and whatnot, and it just stays here. With the other one that it did not expand, it just goes all the way maybe through the entire block or through the entire person, right? Oh, I don't want that in my 9mm. I want to expand. But what about your 22? Well, your 22 is still very underpowered for that sort of terminal ballistic temporary cavity obsession. No, you want to have penetration. So just be a little bit careful about using hollow points that is designed specifically for 22 long rifle handguns in a rifle, because there is a possibility that is designed to expand a lot faster than you're thinking. And if you put that in a carbine, it's going to have a lot more velocity and a lot more power, but that power is going to be misplaced in that little cavity, or maybe a little bit bigger, but not enough penetration. It just expanded too fast. It maybe even lost some mass, right? At the end of the video, what is the point? Just buy stuff that will work. Don't obsess, oh, well, what is it that I do then with my 22 long rifle? Do this. Buy quality ammunition, CCI, the best quality you can find locally, wherever that is. Spend a little bit more money. Don't buy the cheapest crap you use for plinking. Buy quality ammunition. Hopefully, given that it is cheap, buy several boxes and actually test it so as to see that it runs well in your gun. Far more important than anything here that I'm talking about. And don't lose your mind over if it's hollow point or not. If you buy CCI Stinger and it works well, that's okay. That's fine. If you buy the whatever brand name they have now, if you buy CCI high velocity or hyper velocity mini mags and it's just lead round nose, that's going to be fine too, my man. Don't worry. That's going to penetrate. That's going to put a hole. And that's definitely the thing that matters the most, right? That it actually puts a hole. And a lot more than that is you doing your part on putting that where it matters. If you put your round where it matters, doesn't matter if it's a hollow point or if it's a round nose, it's going to be far better than a somewhat closer miss that didn't even hit, or just going for not a tight enough group in that center of mass that you should be going for. All right, guys, quality of ammunition, not losing your mind over hollow point or not. If there's some specialty round that is intended for self-defense, make sure you're using it in the thing it's designed for. If it's intended for pistols and revolvers, use it on that. If it's designed for rifles, then use it on that. But don't try to mix these things up, because you may end up with something that's simply not penetrating as much as you would. Guys, that's going to be all for now. If you appreciate the content of the channel and enjoy this video, subscribe. You have the button over there. And then in the description of the video, we'll have my books, Surviving the Economic Collapse, very important now, and Street Survival Skills. Guys, see you later. Take care.